everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Brenda Weiss, and I'm going to be co-moderating tonight's forum along with Cassie Sermon. I'm a member of Christ Congregational Church in Brockton and a member of BIC's Education Committee. I'm also the proud parent of a Brockton Public School middle schooler, and I teach economics at Wheaton College. And I'm here tonight because I really believe in the transformative power of education, and I want my daughter and all the children of Brockton to have the best possible education so that they can live prosperous and abundant lives and help make the world a better place.
Hello, I'm Cassie Sermon. I am a member of the Brockton SDA Church. I am also on the NAACP committee. I'm also part of the Diversity Task Force. I am the proud parent of 2 children. They're younger, 5 and 2. They are my world, and I'm very concerned about education and making sure that they have the best headed in the future. Also, I am a school counselor with the Randolph Public Schools. I've been in education for 15 years. So I'm going to introduce the panel we have for tonight. The first person we have is Steve Kelly. He's with Ward 3. We have Mark D'Agostino, who is not here. He sends his regrets. We have Nancy Demasito, Ward 5. And we have Judy Sullivan with Ward 5 as well. We have Felicia Chalmers with Ward 6. Oh, so are here. We have Joyce Azak, who's out of state. And we have Tim Sullivan, thank you, Mr. Gormley, who is not here. And we have Raymond Henningson with Ward 7, okay?
Right. We also wanted you to know that tonight we've invited to be on the panel those candidates for office in wards that have challengers. But we also have with us tonight 2 of the school committee members who are not being challenged during this election. And we're happy to introduce to you Mr. Tom Minicello from Ward 1, here in the front. And Brett Gormley from Ward 4. Did I get that right? Yeah. Ward 4. Thank you.
We also have some city officials and school officials who are in attendance. We want to acknowledge Kathleen Smith, our superintendent for Brockton Public Schools. We also want to acknowledge City Councilor Wynn Farrell, who's going for re-election. Do we have anyone that we may be forgetting? Oh, I'm sorry. That's Joyce's sister, right? I'm sorry. Shirley Azak. I'm sorry. Shirley Azak as well.
All right, now I want to call your attention to a map that I hope everyone got a copy of, a beautiful colored map. We want to introduce the members of the audience, and we thought it'd be cool to do that by ward, but we know that we don't always know for sure which ward we're in, so we've handed out ward and precinct maps. Also, you should notice on the other side, it's going to tell people where your polling location is. So if you just take a minute and be sure you know which ward you live in. But even if you don't know which ward you live in, you could pick one and stand. So yes, so could I invite those people who live in Ward 1 to stand? Thank you. Yay! All right. Now, Ward 2. Those who live in Ward 3. Yay! Ward 4.
Yay!
Ward 5. We have Ward 6. And finally, Ward 7.
So we're going to speak about the overall structure of the event. So we have organized tonight's forum to offer an opportunity for our community to get to know the school committee candidates and where they stand on educational issues. The Brockton Interfaith community is a nonpartisan organization and will not endorse any candidate.
So the centerpiece of the event tonight will be 2 sets of questions for the panelists. The first set of questions will be open-ended. The very first question, we will offer each panelist 2 minutes to answer those questions. And then we will have a 1-minute time limit on the following questions. Finally, we will end up with some yes/no questions. We will try to enforce the time pretty strictly to make sure that we have time for all panelists to address all of the questions. I also have a ground rule for the audience. Please feel free to indicate your appreciation of ideas with applause, but we do ask you not to indicate your dislike of ideas with any kind of negative reactions like boos or hissing or interruptions. So while we believe it's really important for all residents of the city to express our thoughts and opinions, we want to do that in a respectful fashion. So I did want to point out one of the ways that you could raise your voice, and I think I lost my card, but I wanted to point out that there's a blue card inside your program. It's got 2 sides. On one side it says, please share concerns you would like BIC's Education Committee to address. So if you have some feedback about some issues that came up tonight or issues that weren't raised that are of concern to you, we would really welcome your highlighting those on this card. We'll have a basket near the door at the end for you to put the card there. Also, if you're interested in joining BIC's Education Committee and helping us shape the work that we do in the community, there's a place for you to put your name and contact information. And we will be hosting a planning meeting for the Education Committee on November 28th from 6 to 8 at the BIC office, which is at Central Methodist Church in downtown Brockton. Now I'm pleased to introduce Tom Minicello, who has served as the co-chair of the Brockton School Committee and been on the school committee for some time. He has agreed to give us some background about the role of the school committee.
Good evening, and thank you for inviting me. I was asked to basically summarize the role of a school committee member in the city of Brockton. It's a very interesting role. The primary authority of the school committee comes from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, according to the Education Reform Act of 1993. And the role of a school committee member is to choose the superintendent of schools, to supervise the superintendent of schools, to set a budget for the school system and the district, and to set policy for the district. But we all know that the role of a school committee member is a lot more than just that. But the first 2 are pretty self-explanatory. When it comes to a budget, the budget is a very complicated item that the school committee needs to deal with. Funding for the schools in the city of Brockton comes from the city, and it also comes from the state. We have local funds and we have state funds. And a school committee member in Brockton will know that the majority of funding for the schools comes from the state. And what's entailed with having a budget or creating a budget, I can tell you, are many meetings and many hours of deliberation. Funding, in my opinion, right now in the city of Brockton for the school system is the #1 issue, because that affects so many other issues. That affects ability to hire, ability to retain, ability to provide programs for our students, educational opportunities with regard to class size. To me, that's one of the main focuses that this school committee and a future member of the school committee needs to pay attention to. having the proper materials and curriculum to basically be cutting edge, to have one-to-one devices like other school districts. Again, it ties into funding. Programs for our students. Our students in the city of Brockton have great opportunities here, but the problem right now with our funding is that we have to unfortunately cut back on some things, especially at the middle schools and elementary levels. We've had to eliminate some programs with after-school programs for students, which none of us like, but again, it ties into funding. So that is a huge issue that all of you who are considering, running for office and being on the school committee are going to have to deal with. Policy, that's another issue that people sort of say, well, policy. Well, I'll give you a for instance, policy. You may have seen in the paper, we deal with policy with regard to dress codes. And parents today know dress codes are very important with regard to how their student leaves the home for school. And we don't want students to be distracted with dress codes that some parents may feel are inappropriate. I'm sure that many of you know that some of our schools at the elementary level have put in uniform policies, and a lot of parents enjoy that because it makes things A lot easier, and B, it provides kids with equality so that people who may have more than others, basically everyone's at the same level, and that distraction because of what you're wearing is not part of the education of the day. It's not part of the kids looking or picking on anyone because they don't have where others do. So I think dress codes so far in all the schools that have implemented them have been working out very well, and the parents seem to enjoy it, and the schools think it's great because it eliminates the distraction. Being a school committee member also, I think, you really have to have a love for people. You have to have a love for children and students, and you have to have a love for our community, and basically in Brockton, I think that's one of the most important and greatest gifts that we have is people, so many different people, and in Brockton, we luckily get along, which is great. But you really have to be a good listener. You have to listen to your constituents. You certainly have to listen to the students because they, especially at the older levels, they have strong opinions about certain issues, and you need to be a good listener. But you also have to have courage and stand up for what is right or what you believe is right, because sometimes what's being asked for isn't in the best interest of kids or isn't the right decision. There are tough decisions that need to be made in the district. I'll give you one, for instance. We had to realign the south side with regard to moving the Huntington School and the Gilmore School and the Goddard School. And that was a very controversial issue. But it had to be considered, and it had to be voted on, and not everyone votes the same way. And the school committee has to have deliberation, discussion in a respectful manner, and basically that was done. Not everyone agreed. It was a close vote, but in the best interest of our students, a decision was made which basically saved the district close to $1 million, which basically means that you have that much money to retain teaching positions. So instead of losing 20 plus more teachers, we were able to save those positions, again, to affect class size and effective teaching for our students. For all of you, obviously, running for office, you need to understand one thing: time. No one can appreciate the time it takes as a school committee member until you're on the committee, because what we basically have to deal with is 2 meetings a month for the school committee. We have several subcommittees. The school committee consists of policy, finance, curriculum, bid review, account review, certified negotiations, non-certified negotiations. We negotiate contracts with the teachers, the custodians, the paraprofessionals, the administrative assistants. Who am I forgetting? School police. And yes, and my favorite, the cafeteria ladies and workers. They're the best. They are so kind to our kids, and they give our kids a good meal every day, and I just love those ladies. So, but that requires time, negotiation sessions. We put in over 30 separate meetings for negotiating with the teachers. That's just the teachers. We put in other unions, maybe not as many as that, but there are tons of meetings, subcommittee meetings. The budget, we had over close to 20 meetings just on the budget. And that's not to mention, people, go into your PTA meetings for all the schools in your district, attending events during the day, at night. After I leave here and put down the mic, I'm headed to the high school for an event. So it's a lot. What I'm saying to you is, get ready. It's a lot of time, and you need to put in the time in order to be effective. So, I mean, we deal with so many things, but you have to really have a love of the kids, because what you have to do is put the kids first. That's what always has to come first. The students, putting the students first and the adult issues aside. The best interest of the kids is basically what needs to prevail, and that's how you be an effective school committee member. So in a nutshell, I mean, that's what it is to be a school committee person. You need to, support your community. You need to support your schools, your administration, your superintendent. It doesn't mean that you always get along. It doesn't mean that you always agree. There's always disagreements about certain issues. You cannot be a rubber stamper. You need to, basically vet an issue, throw it out there, pros, cons, have respectful disagreement, discussion with your co-members, people in your community. So it's a lot. It takes a lot, but I think it's very worthwhile. I've been on the committee for 10 years so far. Lifelong resident of Brockton, and feel it's been a very satisfying 10 years, and look forward to another 2 on the committee. So I think in a nutshell, I've given you a good idea of what it is to be a school committee member in the city of Brockton. One other thing, you always want to have good relations and conversation with your fellow elected officials, city councilors who are here tonight, the mayor, our state delegation, even our congressional delegation, because we're a big part of a big budget and a big community here in Brockton. And the better we all get along, the more communication we have, so that we're all on the same page, working for the city, working for the school district, makes for a more effective school district and basically providing for kids. And that's what we need to do. Always put the kids first. Education in Brockton, in my opinion, is the educational equalizer for all of our students. We provide opportunity for everyone so the kids can be successful, prepare them for the future, so they can move on to bigger and better things. And they can look back and say, you know what? I had a great childhood in Brockton. I had a great education in Brockton. I was provided with the tools I need to succeed. And that's what this is all about. Brockton has a wonderful reputation in the state, an urban center that has a great school system. It's getting harder. I'm not going to lie. It's getting harder because of funding. But we need to continue to work together in order to continue the legacy of providing kids in Brockton with a great education and great opportunities both inside the classroom and outside the classroom, so that they are occupied with positive things: music, art, drama, sports, whatever it is, clubs, all that stuff adds to the whole person and basically makes our city so unique, so successful, and that's why we're what I would say is the best urban school system in the state, and we have been and we will continue to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Pastor Manny Daphnis. I pastor Restoration Community Church, where we are all gathered here on tonight. I'm excited to receive you all and graciously host such an incredibly important gathering. What we all know is that it truly takes a village to raise a community. And that village is a combination of familial influences, educational influences, community influences. And it's the coming together of all of these different pieces that really help to give a child the best opportunity at success. And so our time here today is of importance. I certainly want to hear what has to be said, but even more than what has to be said, what I'm most concerned about is our continued effort at coming together. As a member of the Brockton Interfaith community, our heart's desire as a whole is to see our community come together around faith-based issues connected to the broader social arena to ensure that our community and our faith voice helps to support the forward progression of many of the issues of the day. And we're firm believers that education and the priority thereof is of incredible significance. So we thank you for your presence. We welcome you here again. And what we want to do before we really delve into the questions is to just bow our heads and invite the Lord in. And we pray that our time might be blessed and fruitful. Father, we thank you. We honor you for who you are. Lord, we know that it truly takes just one child who is properly grounded and equipped and educated that can make the absolute difference in really changing the entirety of our world. And so, Lord, we thank you for granting us the opportunity to be those who help to influence children in our city. I pray, Father, that you might bless our dialogue today, that it might truly grant us better understanding of what these candidates stand for, but ultimately, Lord, that it might help us to be better equipped at helping to express our voice in the way in which that we feel you're calling us to as members of this community. We thank you, Lord. We honor you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, I have the opportunity to ask the first question of our illustrious candidates today. So question number one, why are you running for school committee?
So we'll start on this end and go to the end, and then the next question will start the next candidate. So it's 2 minutes for this question?
Hi, I'm Steve Kelly, and I'd like to thank BIC for having this forum. The reason I'm running for school committee is I think that education is the greatest equalizer that we have. You know, I'm a retired program development specialist for the Commonwealth, and I spent a lot of my time as working with the Commonwealth dealing with education issues, problems with students not getting what they needed. And I'm running for school committees. I want to be a voice for families, a voice that can present a view of getting everybody the education they need. Brockton needs to face the fact that for us to be successful as a city, we have to not only raise the education level for our students, but as a city. New Bedford Public Schools is starting up a program on developing an education plan. And the first thing they talk about is for them to raise the per capita income of the city, they have to raise the education level of everybody. We're in a unique position in this city where we've got 3 colleges within 10-mile radius, Massasoit, Stonehill, Bridgewater. Early in my career, I served on the Dropout Prevention Council representing the Department of Public Welfare. I saw how successful we were in developing programs to meet the needs of kids that were dropping out of school. I want to bring that back to the community of Brockton.
Hello, my name is Nancy DiMacedo. The question is, why am I running for school committee? I'm running for school committee hopefully to bring some change. And like my logo, I'm doing this for the kids. I believe the kids in Brockton deserve the best that they can get, and they deserve to be represented when it comes time for them to get funding for whatever they need in regards to their education. And right now, the financial aspect of it is a huge thing right now. I think I can bring some financial accountability to the committee. I think I can bring some transparency to it, as well as being that voice for the kids, what they need. Like I said, this is for the kids.
Hi, I'm Judy Sullivan, and I am running because I have an interest in the issues facing Brockton students and parents today. I would like to have more time to work with the school committee. I'm presently your Ward 5 school committee person on school administration and the mayor on a solution to why Brockton is not being funded properly by the state. The committee is presently working on that. I am a former teacher, so I understand the issues. My husband John and I have raised 2 children in Brockton that went through these schools. I've been working with children and families for over 35 years, listening and talking to children and parents. I have been involved in scout troops and parent events in the schools. I have been a Ward 5 resident for over 35 years. My educational background includes a bachelor's degree in education.
Hello, everyone. I'm Felicia Chalmers. I'm running for school committee because I've had several situations as a parent that have concerned me. I have 3 children with disabilities. And 2 years ago, when my boys were in 7th grade, I was at a class in Massasoit. I got a phone call that said that your boys will be turning 16, and because they are turning 16, they are not allowed to go to 8th grade. This is our policy. I was really upset about that because they knew when they held my sons back in 6th grade that they were going to be 16 soon. And that was their policy, to hold them back for a year, another year. I went home, I spoke to my husband, I thought about it, and I said, you know, this doesn't sound right. They're going to miss a whole year of their education. I said to them, I called them back and I said, you know, could you send me a copy of the policy? Because I'd gone online and I did not see that policy. I reached out to the Federation for Children with Special Needs. I reached out to Children's Hospital, to my psychologist. I said, could you please help me find this policy, because they're saying that my boys can't go on because they'll be 16. None of us could find that policy, by the way. We looked everywhere. We never found it. I called the special education director back and I said, we can't, I said, I'm having trouble. I can't find it. Would you find it for me and give me a copy? They said, of course. I waited, and I waited. 2, 3 days, 4 days, a week. I never received that policy. I called them back and I said, I've been waiting for this policy. I tell you what, I understand you're busy, so I'll come down and wait while you make a copy. I ended up getting a phone call right back after I hung up and said, you know what, the director's going to give you a call. I said, okay, great. She calls me back and she said, I decided that your children can go on to 8th grade. I said, you decided no such thing. There is no policy. I've asked you for the policy. You never gave it to me. After a while, when my children went on to 8th grade, I was asked to speak to other parents who were going through the same thing. This was not okay. Parents like such as myself, the slogan is Brockton Kids Count. I felt that at that point that my kids don't count. So I decided to stand up as a parent and fight for my children and other parents that are going through the same things. This is my reason for running for school committee.
Well, good evening. My name is Ray Henningsen. I'm running for Ward 7 School Committee. So if you vote in Raymond, North, Bel Air Towers, and Sullivan Towers, that's where you're going to go and cast your vote on November 7th. The reason I'm running for school committee, I believe that every kid deserves the great opportunity we afford them for a quality public education. It shouldn't matter in this room whether you're rich or poor or come from whatever background. Every kid deserves that quality public education. I come to the table with a little bit of different experience than some of my other colleagues. I think it lends well to the current school committee. I have over 2.5 decades of financial experience. I'm currently the vice president of finance for a construction company. So I've been dealing with budgets pretty much now going on 25 years. So I bring that uniqueness to the table to this district. I was the former school committee member 2 years ago. I lost by 31 votes. So I'm trying to come back so I can keep on what I intended to do, was right this ship. My other opponent who isn't here today, he was not available like I was. I've been at every PTA meeting at the George. He has been to one in this entire year. As far as I'm concerned, that shows a complete lack of commitment to our kids. I've been here, I've been in the community, I've run school supply drives, I've run various fan drives with people like Jacob Tagger, who's in the audience today. I'm here in this studio, I'm here with you, and I'll be here with you even if I don't win, because that's how important this is to our kids. Thank you.
And now a word from our sponsor, the Brockton Interfaith community. So I just want to say a couple of words about this organization. As many of you know, the Brockton Interfaith community, fondly known as BIC, has been working in Brockton for about 25 years now. We bring together about a dozen congregations in Brockton to work on building relationships and community leadership through work for systematic change. I'd like to introduce you to three of the important people who keep BIC going. First, I want to introduce you to our new executive director who joined us last spring, and that is Will Dickerson, who's here in the back. We also have, keeping our office together, our office manager, Tracy Gutierrez. And last but not least, I would like to call to the stage our organizer, Dwight Sankey, who will be posing the next question for the panelists. Oh, and to remind the panelists that from now on the questions, the time limit will be 1 minute, and we do have a timekeeper in the front who will keep you apprised of the time that has passed.
How everybody doing today? Good. All right, thank you. So this next question is, I'm going to tell a quick story about myself. So I actually graduated from Brockton High myself, and the city's filled with a lot of hardworking parents, and my mom's right over there, very hardworking parent. And the thing is, when you don't have an ID or your ID breaks, you get demerits. When you get demerits, you get suspended. So here we are, like you said earlier, education is key, but at the same time, I missed my education because of a broken ID. So the next question is, because of the demerit system, does the demerit system work? And if so, what should be done about it? I'm starting down with Ray first.
So the current demerit system, it certainly has its good and its bad. It was intended to create a progressive level of discipline. It has turned out through the years that it needs change. I would like to see us investigate other type of things like positive reinforcement, restorative justice type programs. I'd like to see that beta tested in probably the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade before you roll it out to a higher grade. I work in the private sector. When we have a computer system, for example, we do testing, we do beta testing, we make sure everything works and it works properly. So I would definitely tweak that. I think one of the problems too is that you get demerits for being late to class. I think, you know, as a fat man, I always say, how do you get from one end to the other and then try to get through the aisles? And if you're 30 seconds late, you're getting a demerit. So these things need to be looked at. We need to look at other ways that we can deal with discipline in our schools, and I support us looking at those different ways.
Um, I am definitely against the demerit system. I believe that we need restorative discipline. You know, I've been in Brockton High, and like Ray said, you know, it's a big school, and when you're trying to get to the next class, and you're running a few minutes late, maybe you forgot a book, you need to run to your locker real quick. I believe there are other ways to, you know, encourage the children so that, because, you know, when you get a demerit, you feel discouraged. Some of the children, I have children that have special needs, and actually, you know, they forgot their swipey thing, you know, the badge. And I got a phone call about that, and I said, gee, you know, well, they're not absent. They said, well, you know, we'll do it this time, but not next time. They need to make sure that, you know, they have that. And I just felt that, you know, that was upsetting to me because they didn't forget their badge purposely. I believe we need to look at other forms of discipline so that we're encouraging our kids and not discouraging them.
Okay, I believe that the demerit system has worked for many years. We have over 4,000 students in Brockton High School, so we do need to have rules and things for the kids to follow. I know there is ways that you can get your ID fixed. You know, if it does break, I'm pretty sure there's ways. And we are also going to be having a district-wide initiative update, which we will have input for parents can give input on. We're looking at the handbook, and we're going to be going out into the community and having forums for parents to give back to us on things like dress code, discipline. There's many areas. Then you'll be seeing that coming up.
I guess I'm not for the demerit system. I do not agree with a lot of what's there. I don't think that there's enough time allotted for a student to walk from one end of the building to the other with 4,000 students that you're navigating in between. That's a hard task right there. Not to mention, you know, you might have kids with physical disabilities who don't walk as fast, you know. I don't agree with the whole ID system. I don't feel that it's a good system to have the ID where you have to walk into school. I've seen kids walk into school and just flash the ID. How do you know it was from this year? You're just showing that real quick. That's not telling me that's this year's ID. Yellow building, red building, green building. I understand that they're marked with the colors, but that's not telling me that it's this year's ID. There needs to be an update with the system. That's what I feel.
I think we need to get a real system in place that looks at not suspending kids, maybe in-school suspension. Look at restorative justice, a way that kids can grow. You know, we've got to prepare kids for the real work life that they're going to be coming out to. And there are systems in place that they would deal with an employer. There's rules that they'll have that they need to look at when they're dealing with things. So the school department really has to prepare kids for when they get out to the work rules. And that's what I would hope we can put in place. Our systems to prepare kids for the real work world.
Before we move forward, we have Jimmy Pereira, who's running for mayor for Brockton. And we have Jacob Taggart, who's running for city council. So do we have Pastor Dave Capozzi?
Good evening. Yes, I'm a pastor, but I'm a father of 3 kids. 2 of them are in Brockton Public Schools. One is 3 years old, but he's on his way through. And I'm in Ward 2, but I'm also pastor of Brockton Covenant Church. We actually meet in this building. And we're not Restoration. That's Brother Manny over here. But I'm also the interim president of the board of Brockton Interfaith. My question is this. In 1989, only about 33% of Brockton Public Schools students were students of color. Today, about 80% of our students are students of color. So with those statistics in mind, how should Brockton schools change, if at all, to respond to our increasingly racially and ethnically diverse population?
Good question.
I think that the city has to be looking at how do we increase the number of teachers of color. We've got to get more people involved in schools, okay? I chair the Democratic City Committee, and one of the things I've done as chair of the Democratic City Committee is open it up. We've gone to, instead of having, we had 90 members when I started as chair, I think we're up to about 150. And we've brought more people in from all over the community to participate in it. The same has to go with our schools. You know, I bring to the table 40 years experience working with families, working with people of all different colors, races, etc. So we got to go out, get the people from the churches involved on how do we, on recruiting people to become teachers. That's what we've got to get going. We also are competing with all the other gateway cities out there who are in the same predicament that we're in, trying to get qualified teachers. So we have to develop ways of funding programs that give our people a good start.
Are we sitting down now? We're not standing up? Is that okay? Do we need to stand? You're good. Either way. Oh, good? Okay. Diversity, I think, is a big thing. We need some teachers of color in the school. We need a lot because these kids out here are growing up. They need to see what they can do. In order for them to see what they can do, you know, motivate me something. Show me what's there. We don't have that right now. We don't have that in our school system. And the school committee alone that's showing us it right there. Not to point it out, but we are going to point it out. The school system alone has to work with the school committee to get what they need to get done. But if we don't have diversity and we're not showing that in the city, it's not going to go to our kids. Our kids are going to see what's going on there. That's the bottom line on that.
Okay, the question is about diversity. That is already going on, okay? In the city has a diversity task force that we have community members that serve on this task force. The school department also has a diversity task force that has community members serving on it. So that is already being addressed. This year, like I said, we'll be going out into the community to get your ideas on these things. And this year, I mean, if you walk into Brockton High, if you go there for conferences and things like that, I've been there. There's many diverse teachers there, okay? Right now, if your children go to West Middle School, Mr. Campbell was just hired as the principal, which is a minority principal. And there was an associate principal just hired also. There are principals in our school system that are minority principals. So this is already going on.
It may be already going on, but we need more. We have people here from Cape Verde. We have people here from Haiti. We have people here, you know, I'm African American. We have people Puerto Rican. We have every nationality in the city of Brockton. We need more people that look like our children so that our children can feel inspired, and from that they will grow and learn. I come from Tennessee where I saw many teachers that looked like me, and because they were there and encouraged me, I went on to, go to college, become a mother, and I encouraged my children the way that those teachers encouraged me. That's great. We have these diversity task force, but what about I know that you said that you're going to be getting out to the community. Well, I hope you knock on my door because I like to be one of those people that help you to get where you need to be. And our school committee needs to look more like this city.
Well, thank you. That's a great question. So on diversity, I serve on the executive committee for the NAACP. I'm a member of the NAACP for a few years now. We've been discussing this issue. We also have a committee that meets with the school department and Superintendent Smith, as well as we have the diversity committee in the city of Brockton, which was formed this year under this current mayor's administration. Yes, we have a diversity problem. We need to fix that. We need to do more out there. We need to have more engagement out there. I remember something we discussed. We need to be advertising in the Bay State Banner. We don't have an ad in the Bay State Banner. It's the largest African American publication in the state. there's no reason we shouldn't be saying, come here, give us a chance, give us a look. As for myself, I'm the only candidate, my opponent did not do this. I'm the one candidate that put their money where their mouth is. And there's not enough kids going into the field of teaching. So I offered a scholarship to any young man or woman going into the field of teaching. Because I believe it starts with our wallets. Not just rhetoric, not just talking about what we're going to do. We need to actually act.
Thank you so much. So before we start the next question, we're going to start with Felicia and just go this way and you'll answer next, okay? So we'll start with Felicia. Go this way. Okay. No, sorry, let's go this way instead. Okay, the next question. Data shows that students of color are disproportionately likely to be punished. In 2015 through 2016, 7.3% of black students in the Brockton Public School experienced an out-of-school suspension, while only 4% of white students had out-of-school suspensions. How should the school address this disparity?
Are we starting with me?
Yes, we're going to start with you.
I want to make sure. Okay, yes, I have seen that in action. You know, a lot of times I think that our schools need to realize that, you know, a lot of our kids in the city have a lot of things going on. They have, you know, some have parents who are out here who don't come home, parents who have lost their job. We have to be sensitive to the needs of our children. You know, recently, I know of a situation where a little girl in one of the middle schools was having, she had some emotional problems. She, you know, was having a really bad day. She asked to call her mother. They told her no. She reached out to call her mother anyway because she was really having a hard time. And one of the things, they got behind her and they started yelling and screaming. They're talking about, you know, suspending her, not understanding that this child really has some mental health problems. Her mother had to go to the school the next day to, you know, say, listen, she goes to therapy, she has all these things. Why are you talking about suspending my child? They said, well, you know, because she's, you know, always emotional. Well, this is a problem. You don't suspend a child because they have a mental health issue. You find out what's going on, you work with them. The child said herself, they handle it differently when it comes to the Caucasian children. She said they're more sensitive. Well, you know what? A child is a child. I don't care what color their skin is. They should not be getting suspended. We should find other ways to help our children of color because believe you me, they are going through and we need to recognize that and stop and you know, take the stigma off of children of color.
Okay, I didn't realize that there was a stigma on children of color. But, okay.
Could you repeat the, not the whole question, I just want the part with the percentage.
In 2015 through 2016, 7.3% of black students in the Brockton Public School experienced an out-of-school suspension, while only 4% of white students had out-of-school suspensions. How should the school address this?
You hear the percentage difference, right? Everyone heard that, right?
Yes.
That speaks for itself. It should not be a black, brown, white, even green thing. Okay? It should be all the children. They should be disciplined all the same. It should not be a difference because, oh, my skin color is a little bit darker, or oh, it's a little bit lighter. There shouldn't be a difference, but for whatever reason, there is. And this is why we go back to the fact that there's no, or not many, or not much diversity within the system. And that's where we need to all boil down to. Ray, I congratulate you and I applaud you for being the man to put your money where your mouth is. I think I want to do the same.
I think the whole issue of discipline is one of those things that I dealt with a lot in my career with working for the state. I had a lot of clients come across my desk that had dropped out of school for some crazy issues. And I think that we have to relook at the whole suspension process. You know, can we keep kids in school? You know, like other programs are being done, other areas are being done. So instead of having a kid leave school and not get any education, we have something that we do to keep them going in school and work at ways to mediate the problems. Years ago, we had a dropout prevention council that I proudly served on for 10 years. And a lot of what we did was new ways of disciplining, looking at how to work with kids. We had psychological services at the Access Center at the high school. We got to bring things like that back. We got to get people involved to mentor kids. We really need a mentoring program that helps show children how to really work towards being successful.
So, no offense to anybody, but if you don't already realize we have a school-to-prison pipeline problem, you're not paying attention. Because we do. It's all around us. Now, I'm going to steal a little bit of thunder from candidate Pereira here, but one of the things that we need to do is cultural competency. It's very simple. Yes. Cultural competency. We do this in the private sector all the time. It's not something that's too difficult to do. And it's not the teachers. The teachers are only going by what they're told to do. They don't live in the world necessarily that our kids live. You know, when we talk about all these people, you know, we're not all fortunate to live in a nice, gorgeous house in off of Thorny Lee and everything else. We live in our area. We live with poor people. We live with people who have different struggles. We have people who go through various issues. We need cultural competency. We need to increase that in the schools.
All right, now it's time for the 7th inning stretch. So I would like to invite the audience to stand as you are able, and then I'm going to give you a brief assignment. Did you stand as you are able? All right. Now what I want you to do is to look around you and find someone you don't already know really well. Please introduce yourselves and just say a couple words to each other about what motivated you to come here tonight.
I've seen you on the news and some of your things that you stand for.
All right, I think your time is up on the 7th inning stretch. The pitcher's warming up, or whatever they do in the bullpen. Not really sure. Okay, so I want to invite you back to join us. I did want to just clarify that what we had in mind was to start the answers with different panelists each time. So this time we'll ask, for the next question I'm going to ask Judy, if you would start us off this time. And then you can pass it this way, and then we'll go to Ray when we come by the end. All right, Tracy.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Tracy. Hello. Tracy.
Okay. My question is going to be about school dress code, and I'm going to just give a little story. I'm a mom of 5 children, and most of my 4 of them are all in Brockton Public Schools, and I became familiar with dress code issues when my daughter was at Brockton High. So girls are targeted in a different way than boys.
Yes.
And they're hypersexualized.
Yes.
There was one time in particular I was called because my daughter had jeans and they were ripped. So I was called up to the school and I had to bring her something else to wear. And as I was there standing at the desk, the sign-in desk that we all know, my daughter's out of class during this time, I probably saw about 15 girls walk by with the same jeans on, the same type. So my question is, how do you think the schools should address the concern that the dress code standards for high school girls are not applied consistently? When this is not done, first, like I said, the girls are hypersexualized and they're out of class. They're not learning.
Okay, we do have a dress code. It should be followed consistently. I'm hoping that it is. I'm hearing that it's not. Okay, so we will be having, like I said, the district-wide initiative that is coming out. We're working on the handbook, and dress code is one of the subjects. So you're going to get to give us input on that as parents.
The dress code is not followed consistently with one teacher to the next to the next. So you may have gotten your phone call maybe in the middle of the day after she's been to 2 or 3 periods, and in the 4th period, that teacher's sending her out saying, oh no, you're not dressed properly. It happens. I've heard it happens. I know firsthand accounts that it has happened. It needs to be something consistent, and if it's not consistent, then they shouldn't do it. There needs to be a dress code, don't get me wrong, but it needs to be consistently followed from one teacher to the next to the next. And if it's not, you kind of discombobulate everything. So that's where it needs to start.
There's the old adage, dress for success. Hey, we've got to start preparing students in high school for the working world and start to get them ready for work, ready for how they will behave when they get to being in a job. So that's where we've got to start with. You know, I've worked with clients for 40 years trying to get them into employment. And a lot of times the dress code that these folks aren't following doesn't get them into, the reason they don't get jobs is they don't know how to dress for one. So we've got to come up with a dress code that helps prepare them for the real world working.
Well, I don't think you answered Tracy's question. She said that her child was singled out for having on ripped jeans, and when she got there, the other children had on the same jeans. There were other kids. If it's okay for one, it should be okay for all. If the school had a problem with her child, then they should have had a problem with the other 10 or 15 that had on the same clothes. That was not fair. And also, she's right, girls are hypersexualized, and that is not okay either. If the school wants a particular dress code, then each student should dress the way that the school wants them to, and the school shouldn't single out any one person. If Sally can't wear, jeans with holes in them, then neither should, Jamie and Carrie and the rest of them. So that's what my take on that.
Consistency. That's the answer for everything. Consistency. You need consistent policies that are followed. Again, in the private workforce, we have consistent policies, and we adhere to those consistent policies. Our children are hypersexualized. I had a daughter in Brockton High myself, and I think we also have an issue of she would go in and dress inappropriately, not to my liking, to my dismay, and she was never disciplined. She was never given a problem. Now, do I think that she got away with a lot? Yeah, absolutely. Maybe it's because she was in advanced classes and they gave her passes for a lot of stuff. That might be another problem too. We have a hypersexualized youth today. I'd like to see more programs too that are in focus that give women in our schools the empowerment not to feel that they have to do certain things in order to be that way, to look that way or whatever, and have men always leering at them. I think we need to teach that in our school system as well, as respect for one another, and we don't have enough of that.
Hey everyone. I mean, how y'all doing though? All right. Y'all doing all right up here too? Good. Just checking in. Felicita, can I invite you up here? So we actually don't normally do this, but this sister had a really powerful question. She's making me ask it, which is why I'm up here. But I wanted to encourage her to be up here because I think that it's really important that we feel empowered enough to ask questions when questions need to be asked. And so her question is revolved around the raising the diversity in our school system. And right now, the way in which things are set up when folks that are of other ethnicities, right, other than white, are being hired new, right, because of the amount of money that we have coming in to Brockton and to our school system, folks are getting laid off, right, which is causing people, to feel afraid to even apply for being a teacher in the first place, right? Y'all following me? So the question is, what is your plan on how to address that? Because if we're actually going to raise diversity in our school systems, we have to be able to address the fact that when I get hired, I gotta feel safe with my job, that I'm not gonna lose it later. Y'all got it? All right, who are we starting with?
College teachers. So how are we going to get college teachers if we get laid off 2 months later, after the school start? And I got Angel Cosman, he's not here. He's the one, he's one of that I see. He got a job, and 2 months later he got laid off. So how are we going to get us as Spanish people, as college people, apply for a job, then we're going to get laid off later? So what happened with our kids?
See, she didn't need the mic, right?
Thank you.
So, all right. I believe I'm going first.
I guess so.
I was going first. So if I understand your question correctly, you're asking, when we hire the teachers, and the teacher is of color, they're just getting on, so they have no seniority. So they're the first ones to go when they're given layoffs and pink slips. You're right. I believe that the teachers' contracts need to get renegotiated. That's the bottom line to everything. Because right now what they're doing is they're taking teachers that have seniority and they're placing them in administrative roles, and you're giving other teachers where they remain, with less seniority, and they're the first ones getting the pink slips, as in Angel's case. I think diversity is a big thing that needs to get dealt with in the city of Brockton right now. It's a huge thing right now, not a small thing. The fact that these teachers are the first ones to go, not a good thing. But again, the seniority is there, and that's based on the teachers' contracts at the time. Which way am I going? This way?
Go ahead to Steve.
I think that we have to take care of the funding issue, number one. Funding, money, it's all about the money. I think what we need to do is pay Charlie Baker a visit up at the State House. Brockton Kids Count, bring it up to the State House. One of the things I've been a proud union member for all my career with the state for 40 years. And I think with seniority, you earn it. But we've also got to deal with the issue. It's not about seniority, it's about money. So until we solve the funding issue, we need to realize that we've got to bring more people in. We've got to work as a community to come together. And again, we've got to put the emphasis up at the State House, either through the lawsuit or by the legislator taking action to enact policies that our legislators are working on to fix the foundation budget. And we all got to get on the phone. We've got to bring the indivisible group, they're following a whole contract on how to do activities. We got to bring it to lobby at the State House.
Okay. Presently, we have been doing that, the mayor, the superintendent, and the school committee, and city council also. We're all a team that works together to try to get the funding for our kids. Okay, it's going to be a long process because we're not getting help from our legislature and our mayor,
You're right.
governor. Okay, we're not getting that help because the way we used to get more help is through the lunch, free and reduced lunch slips, which in Brockton, everyone gets free lunch. Everyone gets free breakfast and free busing. Okay, but it's not free on our side. Okay, we still have to get the money from the state for these things. Okay, or through grants or things like that. So what we're presently all been working on that, and parents I know have already contacted our legislature and already, but we have to continue that. We have to continue that.
I think that we're going to have to regularly monitor funds throughout the fiscal year. I think that we have to review and approve, the budget with prioritization of each item. I also think that, there are a lot of those teachers' contracts that should, as Nancy said, should be, renegotiated. We had a lot of new young teachers that got laid off, and I know they made a huge impact on a lot of our kids. I know my granddaughter was sad to see her teacher go, and this woman worked really very hard. I think that, and I met while out, walking and canvassing, I met a woman who teaches in Easton who said that she really wanted to teach in Brockton, but because of the budget cuts, she was afraid to. I think, again, it all goes back to funding, and we need to, get to the State House and let them know that we need that, Brockton is just as important as Newton and all those other places, and we really have to do that.
So we have a governor who's pretty much hell-bent on destroying public education in this state. We know that. He's done everything possible to destroy public education and tuck it to the city of Brockton. We know that as well. We need more advocacy on the state level. We need to be going to the state. On May 20th, I was with 4,000 other people across the state, from Amherst, from Brockton, etc. We were on the Boston Common marching, telling the governor that we want quality public education. Now, my opponent, who again isn't here, wasn't there, because you won't find him there. I was at the State House testifying on behalf of bills. He wasn't. I've been pressuring people like Senator Sonia Chang Diaz to continue her fight for quality public education. We need to force our legislature to act, and we need to tell the governor, we're not going to stand by and just let him trample over the city and other urban gateway cities. He doesn't care because his kids don't have to come here. His kids don't live here. We have to make sure we tell him, we're not putting up with this.
Yes. My name is Gene Lawton. I'm a proud member of the BIC Education Committee. I'm just wondering, is everybody out there learning something about the candidates? Okay. I was recently made aware that there was an education thing, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, where only 9 parents participated. So my question to the panel is, what would you do to encourage or increase the parent involvement in their children's school curriculum and lives, especially in community or families rather, that English is either not proficient or spoken at all?
So perhaps we can start with Mr. Kelly and go down that way again.
I think the whole issue of ESOL, we've got to get to community, it's all community involvement. The school department has to become part of the fabric of this whole community. We've got to become part of the fabric of the school department. And basically make education the critical component it is in other communities. There's an expectation that the schools will be successful. We have to set the same tone here. I've dealt with ESOL all my career. I've seen how we can work with different groups to increase the viability of our schools by getting people to come in. Make them accessible. Get volunteers that speak the language that these parents do to come in and work with the school department. Make it a community-wide thing. Develop mentorships for students so that they understand the importance of this education in this city.
We need to get more parent involvement. That needs to be like top priority right now because, just the show in this room alone shows it. This room should be packed right now. You're talking about the people that are saying what's going to happen to funding that's going to the kids. Well, where is everybody? Probably watching me on TV. What's this, keep Brockton cable access? But I'm just saying, this is what we're lacking. And we're not lacking it just from one specific group. It's everybody. We got to get involved because the kids today are our future tomorrow. Everyone's saying, yeah, Brockton kids count. Brockton kids are supposed to count. That's the key word. They're supposed to count. They're not right now. Right now, it's a lack. It's lacking. It's lacking, and it's not a good thing. We have a $16 million deficit in the school budget, correct? Does that still exist? 16 million. I believe it went down a little. Like, it's not as much as it was before, but with that said, why isn't everybody here?
I think we can all agree that parents are the most important in their children's lives, and they need to be in the schools, finding out what is going on with their child, attending parent meetings, attending parent events. We also have the Family Center, the communications, community connections with our Family Center that runs awesome Parent Academy workshops for parents. We have a lot going on out there for parents. We're going to be having these parent forums, and your voice can be heard, but you really are so important. If your children see you involved in the schools, then they are going to be interested in the schools. If we have had problems in the past with parent conferences, parents not showing up for their own child's parent conference. I know when my children were in the junior highs, which are now middle schools, there was hardly any parents there on parent conference night. So talk to your parent friends. Make sure they're going. Parent conferences are coming up. So you need to be there for your kids because you are the most important in their lives.
So before you move on, so we want to make sure we answer the question. And the question said, one concern in our community is that parents are not involved enough in the schools and in their child's education. This is particularly true with parents who do not speak the language or speak it properly or still learning the language. What ideas do you have for increasing parent involvement in the schools? So from a person, very briefly, I grew up in Brockton, and my parents did not speak English very well. So they did not have a lot of resources that we have now for our students. So what can you guys say about this topic?
That's a very good question. And the thing is this, some of the things that when I reach out to parents, what I've found is that there's no paperwork that goes home in other languages. I actually asked that question when I went to CPAC, and some of the parents said that they did not get a paper in the language that they spoke. And that's what was said. A lot of times when I've talked to parents that, from other places, some of the times they said that they feel intimidated. They feel that no one understands them. They feel talked at and not talked to. We need to be better at that. We need to make sure those papers are getting to them. We can't say, we have that online, because a lot of them are not online. So we need to make sure those things are getting in hand. I don't think that parents don't come to conferences just because they don't want to. I think a lot of times they don't come because they feel that, they're going to be mistreated and talked down to.
So we actually have a lady here in the audience, Inez Figueroa. She's head of the Latino Women's Association of Brockton. Now, I would pose the question to her as well. When's the last time you've been invited to a PTA, to a school event, to speak on behalf of your community? Never. There's your problem, right there. We need respected members of the community to be invited to these programs, because that will also increase, because people want to come. We just had a forum Tuesday. We had, 75 people come, more than in this audience, come and learn about the candidates, because they reached out to the community. People like Mr. Andrade, who's a very famous teacher, retired in the system. If he says come to an event, I'm sure people would come to an event. We need that. We need translators to help these children, parents, understand what's going on and not make them feel as though, again, like you said, being talked down to. And we need to have meetings. When's the last CPAC meeting we had?
Well, we haven't had any.
Exactly. So you can't blame the parents if you don't have the meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Right now, we're going to have our rapid fire questions. You are to answer yes or no, and we'll just go down the panel, and we'll start the next question right after, okay?
Okay.
First question. While about 80% of Brockton students are students of color, only 18% of Brockton schools staff, 2016 through 2017, are staff of color. Would you support an aggressive initiative to diversify the administrators, teachers, and other staff of our schools?
Yes.
You just want my answer, yes or no?
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, next question. We're gonna start, Ray, we'll go back down this way. In 2015 through 2016, 6.1% of all Brockton students experienced an out-of-school suspension, and 4% had an in-school suspension. Do you think this is too high?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. If you were currently a parent of a high school age student, would you enroll them in Brockton High School?
Yes.
I can't answer yes or no because I had my son in Brockton school system and I took him out. So no.
That's no. Okay.
Yes?
No.
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever attended a PTA or PTO meeting at one of our schools?
Every time.
Yes.
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 Have you ever reached out to Brockton parents or students to learn about their concerns with the schools?
Yes.
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 I know this answer, I'm supposed to say yes or no, but all the time. Yes.
Yes.
Have you ever attended a CPAC meeting?
Yes.
When they have them, yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
Are you knowledgeable about community resources available for parents of special education students?
Yes.
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 Yes, I have one.
And last but not least, would you be willing to meet with community organizations and parents to listen to their perspectives on Brockton schools?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Of course.
Yes.
So this closes the program. So we want to thank everyone who came out, especially our candidates that came out, answered the tough questions. We want to thank our uncontested candidates as well, our school committee members. We want to thank our people who are running for city councilor, who was running for mayor, and all the audience and everyone who came out today to support. And also the card in the basket. Did everyone receive the card to fill out? We're going to be placing them in the basket. It was the blue card for those of you who received it. And we also want to remind you to vote on November 7th, okay? Everybody needs to go out and vote November 7th. We have the ward maps that were provided so you know what ward you live in. And also, the date we're having for the Education Committee for BIC is Tuesday, November 28th, okay? So you're voting when? When's voting?
November 7th.
Thank you. And where's your blue, who has the blue card? Where's your blue card?
Wave them.
Wave your blue card. We want to make sure you fill it out. Drop them in the basket. And BIC will be having an education meeting November what?
28th.
28th. Thank you so much.